Tell us a little bit about that.
Research, as much as it's been a part of my life for decades now. For me, and then this goes to even the definition of health that is used World Health Organization. It's not just the absence of physical disease, but it speaks to mental and emotional well-being. And I've always believed in balance, so that it's not all about physical only. You have to take care of your mental health. You don't have to ask too many adults how they're feeling regarding this thing called stress to hear from so many of them. They're stressed about a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons. So that has to do with the emotional or mental burden that they feel facing various life challenges, and also what support systems they have in place, or what do they lean on to help them handle those mental, emotional, spiritual challenges. So for me, having that church community, has been very important. My relationship with God is not just a Sunday morning thing that you do. That's a crucial part of my life. I absolutely believe that it has helped me through many a difficult moment. The peace that comes in spirit from being able to pray to God and have Him answering and give me that calmness. On the point of stress, regularly in the office, we have to address this because stress significantly impacts persons' lives. In fact, I tell persons I'm convinced it impacts diseases and even quality and quantity of life in ways that we may not fully understand and appreciate. Persons will often come into the office, sit down, the door is closed, and they start to talk, and tears begin streaming down the eyes. Persons are dealing with a lot. You saw that before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and even since. And you have to then take on the role of counselor. They might have come about one particular issue, a rash, for example, something as simple as a rash, and we begin talking, and you realize there's so much more that they're dealing with, and you now have to address their mental, emotional well-being, which is why I view family medicine, primary care as looking at the whole individual, and in my practice, that's what I try to do, not just deal with, my toe is hurting, I have a rash on my skin, this is my blood pressure reading today, but you have to look at all of the factors that influence how you are doing generally. If not attended to, chronic stress, for example, can worsen diabetes, can worsen hypertension, can definitely increase risk for some types of malignancies, cancers, according to research. So the mental, emotional, spiritual side of us need to be looked after as well. Absolutely. So that health is about the entire person.
No, we're getting into a different aspect of mental health and the youth. You work with a lot of youth and sports as well too. Sometimes you have to play a counselor, etc. That is the case.
Of course.
Yes.
Especially if competition, you can see a stressed athlete being affected, his performances, and you know that once they're stressed, and even for exams, they become very stressed. And today we have a stressful situation where exams were delayed at the gymnasium for 2 hours. That is a stressful situation where children who may have not eaten since the day before, and they turned up from 9 o'clock, but they have to do an exam probably hungry. That adds to their stress. And I believe that in terms of the mental and emotional, I'm encouraging parents to make sure that the children get to school early on mornings, because when you have the morning assembly and they're there and you have the talks from teachers or special guests, it sets the tone for the day at school. So it's very important that they come to school very early for that part of the day.
And let me just say this: I find that it's very taboo, right? It's still taboo, youth and mental health. Now you go, you tell a parent, I feel this particular way. I get on with it, you young man, you got to worry about, But it is very important
that we listen to the children.
We need to take it out of that taboo conversation. No doubt about it, of course, because and it affects confidence. Stress affects how you play a sport, of course.
Performance overall, it affects them,
of course, overall,
right across the board. You see, and sometimes you wonder what they're feeling in terms of their exam, but they're stressed about some other areas. and they can be stressed because there's not much food in the house. They have to share with many of their other siblings. So that can create a stressful situation. You see them act up at school and you wonder what is happening.
Of course.
Yes.
Now, in terms of guidance counselors, right?
Yes, I believe that many there are at secondary schools.
There's
Yes,
still that program.
Yes,
that,
still going on.
Still going on. Yeah, but that is very important. That is extremely important. That I think we should take mental health. Same with you get a cut or you don't feel well physically. Mental health that is a real thing. That is a real thing.
Very much so.
That's a real thing. In terms of medication and so forth, where mental health is concerned, is there reluctancy to obviously prescribe medication where mental health is concerned?
Well, mental health is a new thing, Before, if you were taking medication for mental health, you're taking psychiatric medication, and they tend to leave this sort of bland look on person's faces, you can tell that, oh, he's taking psychiatric medication, you know what I mean? So the medications for mental health, that's a new thing. People don't want to go on things like lithium and so on. It's psychiatric medications, right? So we have to carve a new path and say, oh, this is used when a person have a challenge in depression or so on. Because now the medication for depression, I mentioned lithium and so on, and there are the things, and it tend to, like I knew this one person. He's very, very, very happy going along life, but when he started to see a psychiatrist for problems that he was having, it changed his whole demeanor, his whole outlook. Tend to walk without swinging his arms. Of course, he look a zombie, and people don't like that. So the current medications that are being used are sort of not outdated, but we have to get accustomed to these medications versus taking those medications. Because a lot of reasons why people don't address their mental health is that they do not want to go on these medications.
And there's a stigma attached.
Yeah, there's a stigma attached.
Yeah,
So we have to. Yeah, it's a new field. Not that it's a new field. It's a new way of approaching persons, because we now have to consider the mental health, and as I was saying at another program, the persons to actually do the treatment is sort of like you said, the psychologists.
Yeah.
Psychologists is more popular now. You don't want to hear psychiatrists. Don't want to hear psychiatrists. And we doctors, we can deal with part of it, and we can address it. But persons, for instance, persons want to bare their soul, right, before they bare their clothes. They want to get comfortable with you. As a doctor, person come to my office and I say, okay, go in there and take off your clothes. Look at me. What do you mean? You understand? They want to first outline the problem and get comfortable with you, before you can say, okay, let me examine your tummy. So the same thing with psychiatry. You understand? Same thing with mental health. Persons want to establish a relationship with you, explain what problem they're having before you can institute a treatment. Okay? So that's your whole process.
I think that what people also need to recognize as well, and you two doctors can probably speak to this, is that people with chronic diseases oftentimes get depressed. Because you are limited in what you can eat. You're limited in the activity that you can do, especially if it's a chronic disease which has you bound to your home. So you may not be able to get involved in work activities, or the nature of disease kind of depletes your energy. So you have to stay closer to home, or you may have like intestinal problems that you may be bound to your home. So that is something that you also need to discuss as well. I want to know how much of that have you seen in your practice. Up to today, you heard it on the radio program where the person was so frustrated that they almost mentioned sentiments of they just wish that they can go. So how do you deal with that in your practices?
Yeah, there is definitely a link between the chronic diseases, and this is not just diabetes, hypertension, as you alluded to, chronic pain. Persons dealing with chronic pain, are more likely to have depression than someone who is not. You also see it with diabetes for sure, and sometimes you wonder, and I know some research has looked at which came first, where you have someone who's diagnosed diabetic, and you may think as a physician, but this person can do a little more. They can put in greater effort trying to control their diabetes, and you don't see that. But sometimes it's because there's undiagnosed depression, which has affected their motivation, their drive. They don't have the interest in, they feel flat and looking out for themselves anymore. And of course, that will naturally result in the blood sugar levels becoming much higher and the attendant complications. So yeah, there definitely is a connection there, and you have to address that. It's an area for a lot of psychology and counseling, because if as a primary care physician you just push medication to deal with the diabetes only, and you don't address the fact that the depression is a significant part of why this person is struggling, and you don't address that, you're not going to get very far with the diabetes. In fact, quite often the medication will end up at home on the table, not being used, which is why you have to address the whole person, and that's one of the challenges in our health system, public and private. Public more so, where the time to work through these different problems. Sometimes we reduce births to, okay, your blood pressure is this, your blood sugar is that, prescription and gone. And you haven't addressed the fact that the reason why the blood pressure is high or the blood sugar is high is because they aren't taking the medication the way you think they're taking it, based on how you wrote it, because of a whole host of problems that they have, and even side effects of medication that as a physician you may not have taken the time to work through, to help them to better manage that. So there are a lot of reasons then why you see the uncontrolled conditions that they do, and mental health is a part of it. The lack of motivation to do more, not always, but sometimes that's due to depression, undiagnosed and untreated.
Yeah, we talk about psychological